I'm Kaylee Evans. Welcome to my channel, Social Care Connections. I hope you enjoy the video. So I thought in this video I'd talk about what I wish I'd known when I started university doing social work. So one of the things that I wish I'd known is the reason we should even write essays. And I think I've reflected on this lately and broken it down to why we even write in the first place. But writing is so associated with language and how we communicate. And in social work, as you know, everything's about communication. And writing things down really helps to organise your thinking. And a lot of the time we're standing up for people and for what's important for them. And being able to articulate yourself in a concise and ordered, measured way is so essential. And it's one of the key skills in social work. So that's the first thing. The second reason writing is so important is because if you are trying to argue the case for someone to have a service, you need to be able to articulate yourself so that your argument comes across. And I also think it's important because I've had times where another professional hasn't been acting appropriately, and it's been so hard for me because it's such an awkward thing, but you have to stand up for the person and make sure that they're being treated fairly. I just remember one time where I had to write about how I felt they'd been dehumanised and how the person had stood over them and looked down at them while they were lying in a bed and just made them feel like this big, and just trying to like articulate that into words in a way that expresses the emotion of the situation is so important. And that actually brought about change that was needed to make sure that people's rights were being upheld. The other thing that I'd say I wish I'd known from university is just to enjoy like the learning around the theories and the models and things, because I know that in the first year I was sort of like, why is this relevant? Like I thought I'd be doing more practical stuff, and I know that's naive now. And when I look on Twitter and like all the social work networks and stuff, I feel like a lot of other students like more savvy and engrossed in the theory and stuff, especially like even the people in the first year. But I sort of didn't understand the relevance of it. By the time I'd finished, I got way better at it, and I basically went from like some of them getting 2-2s or whatever to getting a first in my third year, but everything just clicked in my head. I think it's that I was able to break it down and understand things on a basic level before I then tackle more of the complex stuff. So I found some of like Siobhan McLean's like theory resources really helpful. And then in terms of law books, I found Alison's Brammer's law book really helpful. And then she's broken some things down further as well. I think it's things like that that really helped me. But reading in general, I think I've realised that I do enjoy like audiobooks and things like that. So I'm hoping in the future that some social work books could maybe be put out in different ways as well. In general, just in terms of the first year, I think just acknowledging, because I got myself quite worked up in the first year because I struggled quite a lot with the writing of it and everything. But someone that I was close to at the time said, you're not meant to know it all because it's the first year and like you're here to learn. And I think taking that pressure off myself really helps me to then enjoy the process of learning a bit more rather than criticising myself all the time. I think it's really important like who you surround yourself with as well, because I became really close friends with someone in the second year that helped me so much, and me and him, like we'd go to the library together and it was a nicer time really. I think it's just about choosing the right people. And I think it's also, I remember in the first year I was more of a follower, like I'd be a bit nervous because I think it's like the prestige of being in a university or something just threw me off, and I just wanted to make sure that I was getting to the right rooms and things like that. But then by the third year I got really confident, and I'd just go on my own and just sit at the front and just think, well, I'm paying for this, now I'm going to be as good as I can be. So I just like thought, well, I'll go and I'll ask questions, and like my questions are as valid as other people's. And I think it's a lot easier to apply the knowledge when you're actually on placement and then reflecting on it, because sometimes I feel like there can be a bit of a disconnect between what you're learning because in the first year, because you've not actually seen what it's like to be a social worker. Obviously we have, most people going into it have done some volunteering and things like that, but there is quite a big difference between like the voluntary agencies and then when you go into social work on a statutory basis. And I think also I'd probably say to people to really listen to the law side of it and not feel like, oh, you're just getting through your exams and then you can throw it all away, because the biggest thing that you're going to need to know when you go into social work and you're writing your assessments is the legal framework, but breaking it down as well and looking at what other practitioners have on their desks. In our council we have like these little Care Act breakdowns, or if you're in children's services, I know they have them in there as well, where it's like the breakdown of the key things that you need to know, and I think they can be helpful. One thing that I did notice as well is the difference between the people who just go along with what other practitioners say and the ones that go straight to the source. So I would say that when you're on your placement, although you're obviously looking at all these people that are far more experienced than you, make sure you're double checking everything and like looking it up for yourself and trying to find first-hand sources, because you don't want to get into bad habits starting out. And also, I think it's just a lot of people made an issue of my age, because I was quite young going into social work, and I used to feel like I really needed to justify myself. And I know that other people might have reasons why they feel they're having to justify why they've gone into social work, but I think it's just remembering that you got onto the course. If someone's going to be like really aggressive, because some people really made me feel like this big, like because I was young, and I used to really like it used to really bother me, like I'd question myself, but now I'm more confident. It doesn't bother me at all, because I know that I'm in the right job, because I care about people, and it usually is the really confrontational people that can be a bit nasty to other people that are really like rude to you. And I think it's just taking a step back and trying to think, do I agree with what this person's saying? Because other people's opinion of you matters to a certain extent, but it depends who they are, doesn't it, really? And just managing that and managing expectations. I think in terms of the placement, practically, I'd say have a really good organisation system. So I think I'm going to do a video on this, but I use a Word document and I have a table where on the left hand side I put all the names of the people I'm involved with, and then I put like a notes section just to say what I'm working on currently, a bit of background, and then some notes of like family members, because what you find at first is you're learning so much new information. It's really hard to then also keep all these new names in your head, and then if a family member calls you and you already feel like out of your comfort zone because you feel like everyone's watching you in the office, don't you, when you're on the phone and things like that. Just knowing that you've got this spreadsheet and you can just press Control Find, and then you've got the person's family member. Like you might think you've answered the phone and suddenly you're thinking, well, who is that? Who is this that's ringing? But then you can just press it and then straight away you've got the details and just like little bullet points of what you need to know. Then you feel like a lot more in control and a lot more comfortable. And I also think it sort of puts you across more professional, like you're on top of it in your supervisions. And then also when you're talking to your manager about where you're up to, or if you're off, you could send in that table and then you look like you know what you're doing. And I think it's for your own well-being as well. Being organised in social work is so important, because they're the things that give you anxiety. And I think developing your own sort of strategy around how you're going to manage your time. So I started to organise my to-do list in the last half an hour of the day, and rather than working right up to 5 and then going home and still having things on my mind, I found that really worked for me. In terms of overall, I just really enjoy the experience, because even if you think some things like are a bit irrelevant and things like that, you don't realise how relevant it is until you're a practitioner, and you just remember that little bit of knowledge that you were told years ago, and it just comes to mind, and you're just so thankful. And I think you might think, oh, you know, learning about all these values, but I have good values myself. But the social work role can sometimes be a little bit more confusing to pinpoint than other professions. But I think it's just the grounding that you get from like your initial training, like anti-discriminatory, anti-oppressive and things like that, is so important, because when you're in the room and you're in a multidisciplinary meeting and you're a student and everyone in the room is saying one thing, and you know that that's not in the person's best interests, you're going to have to challenge it, and you need to know why you're challenging it. You need sort of like a feeling that you're doing the right thing. And I'm not saying like you're on your own, because obviously as a student you do get a lot of support and things, but just thinking about why you're doing what you're doing is really good, I think. So yeah, I might say some more tips another time, but I think that's enough for today. Thank you. If you enjoyed the video, please can you like and subscribe and press the bell if you'd like to be updated when I put out more videos. Thank you.